Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And this week in the Apex, we have Roman Dolidze taking on Fluffy Hernandez in the main event. But as always, I am joined for this full card breakdown by the man, the myth, the legend, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And as always, here on the Ground and Pound Podcast, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we kick things off in the early prelim opener of Julija Stoliarenko taking on Gabriella Fernandes. A little bit of a tongue twister there with the Lithuanian. But Carlos, you going with the Lithuanian or you going with the Brazilian in this one?
I'm going to take the Brazilian in this one. I see a lot of upside to Fernandez. She's just got to learn to put it together. What I mean by that is she's got good power, and you could tell she's skilled on the ground as well. She's got very good jiu-jitsu, but she needs to learn how to sit on her punches. They're a little wild, and when she's throwing them, she's just winging them from the arm. If she just learns to sit, I think she's somebody, probably not Amanda Nunes type power, but she does carry some pop. And I think if she learns to sit on it, I think she can definitely start to hurt her fighters a lot earlier. Especially, she also brings that rear leg kick. She does a lot of damage with that kick. And Stoliarenko, I think she's a Hoja Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So she's very skilled on the ground as well. It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same formula. She has the ability to finish the fight. She's dangerous on the ground, but she has no means to get it there. She uses the clinch, gets you up against the cage. She's always looking for foot sweeps, some type of trip, maybe a throw if she's got it in her arsenal. But from what I've seen, she doesn't. And she doesn't. She hasn't had a lot of success in the UFC. We'll say that as well. And I just think that Fernandes is going to bully her. Even if this goes to the ground, I don't think it's going to be one of those Stoliarenko, whether she wants to or not. Like, I don't think she has that ability to, once it hits the mat, get it finished. I think that Fernandez, if it goes down, she does play off her back if she's on her back there. But I think if she gets on top, there's going to be a lot of ground and pound. And that'll open up a lot of submissions for her as well. But I think on the feet, she's just going to kind of bully her and probably just get the decision there.
Yeah, two for the Brazilian Gabriella Fernandes here. I've been pretty impressed with Fernandes coming off of that upset win over Wang Kong. I think she's obviously confident is going to be high, obviously a big underdog in that one. And, training at MMA Masters, a great gym, obviously, to be at. And the former LFA flyweight champion, Gabriella Fernandes, is. So, obviously, got a decent amount of experience. And one of the things I do like about her as well is obviously being that she is a southpaw. Carlos mentioned it earlier, is she likes to blast that rear kick, which I do like. I think that the ability to mix in the striking and the grappling is something that she does very, very well. She has medaled in jiu-jitsu competitions, so not necessarily the high level black belt that Stoliarenko is. However, Fernandes I think she's capable on the ground. I'm not necessarily too worried if this fight does hit the mat. And I will say as well, when you're talking about physicality and some of the women in the division, some of them can be very sort of slim in build. Fernandes is pretty jacked, in terms of her physique, in terms of her muscularity. So I do think she's quite a strong female, especially in the clinch. She likes to use a lot of knees as well. And when you talk about Julija Stoliarenko, to me, she's a little bit armbar or bust. She can't get fights to the ground as she times her takedowns. You saw in the fight against Molly McCann, she had a very nice duck under sort of blast double there that she got against Molly. She was able to get that armbar off. As Carlos mentioned, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is strong in this one. As Yoda would say. But to me, I just feel like this fight stays on the feet. I think Fernandes is the better striker. I do think she packs a little bit more punch and a little bit more power. And to me, Stoliarenko, she's down to trade in the pocket, but she definitely looks a little bit uncomfortable on the feet, especially with her chin. I think she gets caught here. I'm going to say that she probably gets put out maybe in the late second or third round here. I think Fernandes gets this one done late in this one with the striking. And if this one hits the mat, I think Fernandes has just got to be a little bit safe, just mindful of positions, mindful of where her arm's at, and maybe even just try to get back to her feet and not get swept here by Stoliarenko. But I'm going with Fernandes here. I feel fairly confident in her this week. And next up, we have Uros Medic, the doctor, taking on Gilbert Urbina. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Uros Medic in this one. I think Urbina can get off quicker. I think he's just a little quicker. I think he has a little bit of a speed advantage, but Medic, what he likes to do is he likes to get flowing early. He does have a little height, a little bit of a reach advantage, does Urbina, but I don't think any of that really matters because he does what you're supposed to do. If you're the taller guy in this matchup, you should be fighting a little bit off your back foot, keeping that distance. But what he doesn't do is whenever somebody tries to invade that distance, you got to sting him with something. You got to get the respect and you got to smack him with something hard. And he just doesn't have the capability to do that. Plus, he doesn't really fight very well going backwards anyway. So that kind of ruins his plan when he's going up against like some of the better strikers in the division. And I think Medic is actually one of the better strikers in this division. And going forward, Medic is a monster. He's flowing all the time. He's throwing in combination. He's mixing it up with kicks, punches, knees. Um, I just see that Urbina he likes to mix in takedowns. I don't believe that's going to be a factor in this matchup, but it's just something that he does. I don't know if it's strategic, where he wants you to think I'm going to try to use every aspect of the game, but he goes for the takedown, but he never really follows through with it. So I don't see Medic being on the ground, and I don't think he has the ability to keep him down once he's there. So Medic should be able to get this one done.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Doctor Medic here, but I will say I don't know how confident Carlos is, but I'm not necessarily super confident in this one. I have a weird feeling about this one. To me, Urbina, this is a little bit do or die for him. 1-2 inside the UFC currently, coming off of a 1.5 year layoff. So maybe he comes back a little bit improved here. We see some new skills, new wrinkles to his game. Still on the right side of 30, you have to remember as well. And sometimes these Ultimate Fighter guys come back and they do surprise us a little bit. Training out of Jackson Wink, like I mentioned, a great gym. Very tall for the division, can mix in wrestling and grappling, like Carlos did say as well. He does tend to throw a little bit sort of one shot at a time. I think that he does mix in the grappling very well, and I do think that he'd be best served to do that here against Medic. He does have good kicks, but Medic has probably got the better kicks in this style matchup. And to me, for Medic, this is a step down in competition. If you go look at some of the people that he's been losing to and some of the competition that he's been able to beat, Semmelsberger, what's that other guy? Is it Urumbekai? I forget the guy's name. The guy that just fought not too long ago. A lot of the competition that he's been fighting are more established names inside the UFC. So I think this is a step down in competition for him. He's very light on his feet. He switches stances. To me, he does leave his chin up in the air a little bit at times. He did get caught by Storiano in his previous fight, put out very early in the first round. We saw against Semmelsberger, he got dropped multiple times, just leaving his chin up in the air and kind of getting into the pocket, not being defensively sound. So that does worry me a little bit with Medic, but I do think he is the cleaner striker. I like the fact that he invests to the body. Obviously, the long torso here of Urbina is going to be definitely something he can target, especially with the kicks. And I do think the speed advantage here is going to go to Medic, but I think this is just going to be a back and forth striking affair. As long as Medic keeps this one on the feet, I think he should be hands down the better striker, the more faster striker. And I don't really like the layoff here for Urbina either, so give me Medic here to get this one done. And next up, we have on short notice, Priscila Cachoeira taking on Joselyne Edwards. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Jocelyn Edwards. Cachoeira, she is kind of a beast. If it stays on the feet, she's a strong puncher. She's a strong striker in general, and she's always looking to mix it up. But Jocelyn Edwards, she's a very good striker as well. She does very good fighting long, keeping that distance. And the other thing she does is she mixes in a lot of grappling. Even if it's more recent, I think, is what she does is mix in a lot of grappling. She gets a lot of takedowns. She gets a lot of top control. And that's actually something that Cachoeira has always struggled with. So I think if Edwards is not getting the best on the feet, I think she's probably just going to try to take this to the mat and do a little snuggling, get the control that way, and not too exciting, but that would be one of the best ways for her to easier ways for her to get this victory.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that. You see this one the same way I do. I'm going with Edwards as well. I think that's definitely going to be the path to victory here for her, coming off of a first round knockout in her previous fight. Before that, a third round submission. So back to back wins, back to back finishes for Joselyne Edwards. And I think if she takes this one to the ground, she could definitely find a submission. That might be in our best bets this week, depending on the price for here. We've seen Cachoeira get submitted many times in previous fights as well. And we do know with Joselyne Edwards, like Carlos mentioned, kickboxer, but she likes to mix in takedowns. I think that the takedowns would be an easy path to victory here. Cachoeira, taking this fight on somewhat short notice, replacing Mauro Bueno Silva. You have to think, that maybe the gas tank's not necessarily going to be there. Maybe she comes out early and looks to find the chin here of Edwards. We know that with Cachoeira, she does carry a lot of power in the hand. She has a nice straight right hand. And in her previous fight against Nunes, that she was able to find the chin there and show off that power. But she does tend to overextend, especially when she's looking for those big power shots. I could see Edwards ducking underneath here, really just kind of fighting on the outside and really just kind of minding her P's and Q's here. As Cachoeira gets a little bit more tired, she mixes in the grappling, finds a submission late, maybe in the second or third round here. Or like Carlos said, maybe she rides out some top control here to win a very simple decision. But either way, I see this one being all Edwards. The only way I see Cachoeira really winning this one is if she finds the chin somehow of Edwards. But Edwards, up until this point, in 21 professional fights, she's never been finished. But there's always a first time in terms of her being knocked out. She's been submitted once. But I don't necessarily see that happening here. I don't think she gets knocked out. So give me Edwards here to ride it out with the wrestling. And next up, we have Toshiomi Kazama taking on Elijah Smith. And I got to say, man, I'm not high on either of these two guys. So I want to see who Carlos goes with. Carlos, who you got in this one?
This one was another one of those confusing fights. And I ended up going with Elijah Smith. And I'm going with him because Kazama actually comes in a little reckless. I think he probably carries the bigger pop, and I think he a little faster. I don't know. Maybe Smith's a little faster, a little quicker. I don't know, but he looks like in his reckless style. Maybe it's just the fact that it'll be just a barrage of strikes coming at you. He looks to be a little quicker on the feet. Um, with that style, he gets caught. It happens. But if Elijah doesn't have a plan for it and he just goes straight back, he also leaves himself in the line of fire. So for him, what he's going to have to do, and I think he does it right now pretty good, is he's kind of I don't want to say a thinking man's fighter, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but he doesn't take a lot of chances. So I don't see him going straight back. He's going to circle out, maybe 3/4 turn on his exits. That'll keep him safe. I could see him getting a takedown, possibly securing it. But Kazama himself, too, he can grapple as well. And he can get the finish on the ground. Who has the upper hand? I'm not too sure. I haven't seen a lot of Kazama on the ground. I haven't seen a lot of Smith on the ground. But I feel that Smith is probably the more technical, the more educated fighter of the two. So I went with him for that. But I'm not confident in this one, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard to be confident in either of these two. I am going to go with Smith. I'm right there with you on that one. I do think that this should be kind of target practice for Elijah Smith, especially on the feet. We've seen with Kazama in the past that he's been knocked out multiple times in multiple fights. And for the exact reason that Carlos just said, he does come in a little bit reckless with his chin up there. And I do think that Elijah Smith has nice boxing and decent combinations. When you watch his last fight against Michael Morales, is it Michael Morales? No, not Vincent Morales. Vincent Morales in his previous fight.
Morales.
He'll throw the combinations. He'll be able to, disguise certain shots with the jab, and I like that. I think that's something that he's very measured. He's very good at. Definitely the better athlete in this fight as well. I do think as well that with kind of when you look at Kazama, you know that you're going to have the striking advantage here. You know what he's going to look to do in terms of the grappling. So he showed off Smith in his last fight that he can keep fights on the feet. He can, stuff the takedowns and kind of excel in the boxing. I think if he does that here, he's definitely going to find the chin here of Kazama. But my only concern here is just if he gets a little bit overzealous and he does get taken down, Kazama takes the back and finds the choke. He has got nice back takes in Kazama when you look at some of his older fights. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, though. I don't think he's UFC level. I do think that Smith is a better athlete and a much better boxer in terms of the hand speed and the combination. So give me Smith here to find the chin of Kazama. But at 22 years old, I will say this, keep this one out of parlays, that's for sure. And next up, we have Julius Walker taking on Raffael How do you pronounce that last name, Carlos?
Cerqueira.
Cerqueira, that's it. Yeah,
Cerqueira.
Cerqueira. Raffael Cerqueira taking on Julius Walker. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Well, I went with Julius Walker, and the reason being is Cerqueira's off to a rough start in the UFC. There's video on him to watch as he's fighting guys on the regional scene back in Brazil, but in the UFC, I think the fights have lasted maybe a minute, minute and a half, and it's just him looking up at the lights. And for that reason, he just hasn't been able to get into a rhythm yet. And there's really not much you could tell. Like, does he have good movement? Does he have good reads? Right now you know, he's moot. There's nothing that he does well. So I'm gonna go with Julius Walker for the reason that he's not going to knock out Cerqueira in the first minute because he's going to want to take him down. Probably start with clinching him off getting up in a clinch against the cage and working him down from there. He's going to want to try to get the submission or go for the ground and pound once he's down there to open him up for submissions. If he starts with the ground and pound, he's probably going to knock him out. But if he's looking for the submission, I don't know how Cerqueira is on the ground, but I'm going with Walker because he showed a little bit of a toughness against Alonzo Menefiel, who's a very difficult first fight for anybody newcomer to the UFC. And he was able to take him down. He was able to stand with him. We saw how tough he was because he took a lot of shots in that fight. And he doesn't really throw with conviction when he's throwing back, which I wish he would because 6'4", 205, all you got to do is learn to turn into those, and whether it's a punch or a kick, and you're going to have a little something on it, but he just kind of flips it out there. He doesn't throw with any sting. So I'm going to go with Julius Walker. I don't think it's going to be this impressive victory, but I think he's going to get the job done.
Yeah, like Carlos said there with Alonzo Menefield in his previous fight for Julius Walker, that's a tough opponent. I think he was ranked 15th at the time, so obviously first for his UFC debut to be able to get a ranked opponent just says, I think the UFC obviously thinks this guy is respectable, and only at the time 6 professional fights, obviously now 7. So he's a guy who's very, very tall for the weight class. He likes to come in and clinch. He likes to throw knees in the clinch to the body and the head, and he really likes to wear down his opponents. He throws a little bit of a elbow every now and again in the clinch, but ultimately he's either all the way in or all the way out. You don't tend to see him too much kind of in the boxing range. To me, when you kind of talk about Cerqueira, it's what do we really know about this guy? Like Carlos said, the tape out there is very limited. You watch him on the regional scene, he's fighting taxi drivers. When you see him inside the UFC, you blink and you miss the fight. You go to the bathroom and the fight's already over. So it's really tough to say what Cerqueira's real skill set is. If Walker takes his fight to the ground, maybe Cerqueira has fantastic jiu-jitsu we haven't seen yet. I'm just going to go with what we've seen so far. Give me Julius Walker here. I think he comes in. I think he blasts kicks at range. I think that once he gets into the clinch, he finds a takedown. Some of his previous wins have all come via ground and pound. So I think he's going to be able to get this fight to the ground, beat Cerqueira up with ground and pound. And I think that's going to be 3 in a row here for Cerqueira. We're going to be looking at him going back to the regional scene to fight some cab drivers. So I feel like Walker should get this one done, providing that Cerqueira doesn't do something out of the ordinary that we haven't seen yet. And next up, we have my boy, Christian Leroy Duncan, the next Michael Jordan, the Allen Iverson. A little inside joke there between me and Carlos. Taking on Eryk, your boy, Anders. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I know you're probably going to look at me a little off on this, but I'm going to go with Anders. I like Duncan. I like his movement. I like, I guess you could call it flashy, his in and out. He darts in for a strike and he gets out of there. Looks good. I like it. But in some of his past fights, like we'll say against Armin Petrosian, Petrosian did something where he was throwing in combinations, kind of forcing someone, because Petrosian has a kickboxing pedigree. He's forcing Duncan to get into an exchange with him because he's going to get off first and he's going to get the better of the exchange. Duncan didn't do that. He actually backed out of range. As he's backing out of range, he's taking himself out of the game. offensively. So what happens is now he knows he's starting to have to, he's at that point in the fight where he has to come forward to score. And he started getting a little over aggressive. And that's when Petrosian went for the takedown and was able to control him on the ground for a little bit in the last 2 rounds. Same thing against Gregory Rodriguez. In that particular fight, he was very hesitant coming in after the first couple of strikes were thrown because of the power that was coming back at him. And then Rodriguez was able to just post him up against the cage and take him down, or just get a takedown, body lock, boom, get him down. He's a very strong grappler. And it was a lot of ground control. Now, Eryk Anders can do the exact same thing. He doesn't carry the big power. Oh, he does carry some power, but I don't think he has the accuracy to get it there when he needs it to. He just kind of loops some hooks. And if he hits you and you're out. But I think what he could do, because he does compete in a lot of grappling tournaments against some high-level guys, and win or lose, he's always doing that. He's staying fresh with the grappling. And I think he can get Duncan down and actually control him and land some ground and pound. And I think he can and he's going to have to work hard for it. But I think he can do that and minimize his own damage at the same time. I could be wrong, and Leroy Duncan just flashes in, throws a 1-2, and starts putting him out. Who knows? But I think Anders can get this one.
I'm going with CLD, man. Not the biggest fan of CLD. I was only joking around before, but he's decent. He's got the skill set here that I think could definitely beat a guy like Eryk Anders. Eryk Anders, your boy Eryk Anders, former football player over the University of Alabama, former LFA middleweight champion, good athlete, a little bit flat-footed. But I think that stocky build, it fits his wrestling sort of grappling heavy approach that he has, especially that with that build. It's pretty much exactly the kind of build you'd expect to have from a guy that looks to grapple. And it's worked for him, obviously, against Chris Weidman. He was able to get it done in that previous fight against Weidman. But how good is Weidman at this point in his career? He's definitely no CLD. I think the speed here of CLD is going to cause him a lot of problems. I think the technical striking here of CLD is going to be much more of a factor, much more of a problem for Eryk Anders on the feet. I think what this fight really just looks like to me is a guy that can use multiple facets of MMA against a guy that's just going to look to use one skill set, and that's the wrestling of Anders. I think CLD can basically, wherever this fight goes, I think that he can have success. I think if it's in the clinch, I think Duncan can definitely use his clinch striking here with the knees and the elbows we've seen him do previously in his last fight against Puliev. If this fight's out at range, I like CLD's ability to strike and dart in, like Carlos said, with the 1-2. I like the kicking game of Duncan a little bit more. And I think he's also made a conscious effort in previous fights, as he's shown, to really work on the wrestling, work on the grappling a little bit more. And we saw in the RoboCop fight that Duncan was just outmatched in terms of the physicality and the athleticism and the speed of RoboCop. I don't think that Anders has that same speed and athleticism that RoboCop has. He is a big guy, he is a brute, but he doesn't have that speed and fast twitch ability, I think, here to be able to get Duncan down, control him, kind of bully him. I don't see that happening here. I think the striking of Duncan, the footwork of Duncan is going to get him on the outside. It's going to be able to win with the striking here. Give me Christian Leroy Duncan to get it done. And next up, we have Gene Matsumoto taking on Miles Johns. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Matsumoto on this one. Miles Johns is a good wrestler, and he does get takedowns, but he struggles to secure position to control. Most of the times, as he gets the guy down, they're already working their way back up. Now he can hit. He is kind of heavy-handed as well. But the other thing is that he only throws one shot at a time, maybe two every now and again. And that low volume compared to what Matsumoto is going to put on him is what's going to take him out of this fight. Now, with the size of his head on such a small body, it's going to be very hard to just take out Miles John. But he could take a shot. Look at the size of that melon. You know what I mean? Like he just has the ability to take a shot. But can Matsumoto, what Matsumoto likes to do sometimes is sit in the pocket while he's striking. And if Miles starts throwing a wild overhand or a wild left hook, Matsumoto could be, susceptible to getting caught with it because he does not hold a high guard when he's inside. But I don't believe that Johns is going to be in that range. I don't think he's going to be able to get there. I think Gene's going to come in a little bit more focused, a little bit more skilled. He's going to use a lot of movement, and he's used to stalking his opponent. He's going to stalk Miles. It's just going to happen. But I think he's going to be a little bit more wary of what's coming back at him, and I think he gets it done. I think he's going to pick him apart and just get this one done.
Yeah, I just got to say one thing, Carlos, before I break this one down. You always talk about my fat shaming. Now you're over here dome shaming. Come on, man. Let's not start dome shaming people. But I will have to agree with you that the dome of Miles Johns is something to behold. If you go back and look at the tape study, which I've done this week extensively for this fight, you go back and look at the Miles Johns fight where he fought against, I just got to think of the guy's name, in his previous fight against Lima. When you look at that fight with Felipe Lima, when he comes out to the cage and he tries to take his hood off, it actually gets caught on his forehead. So that's the extent of our that's actually the extent of our tape study this week. And if anybody's unsure, go back and watch that fight. So no, but all jokes aside, Carlos's breakdown here to me of Miles Johns is spot on, including the forehead. The overhand right, he pretty much loves. He loves to throw that right hand. He doesn't really throw in combination, and he just kind of throws one shot at a time. And I think against a guy like Gene Matsumoto, that's going to be a big problem. I think he falls in love with the home run. I think that he's not necessarily the most skilled fighter. He's mixed in grappling in the past, but I would say that Matsumoto is definitely the better wrestler here. We saw in his last fight against Rob Font, that was a very close fight. He on short notice, he took it on like 10 days notice, came in against a high level ranked opponent like Rob Font. He was able to get the grappling going early, but eventually got a lot of his takedown stuff late into that fight. And this fight, obviously, against a guy like Miles Johns is a big step down in competition. I love the way that Matsumoto throws combinations. He'll end a lot of his combinations with low kicks or high kicks. I think just mixing up the weapons here against a guy like Miles Johns is going to be all it's really going to take. I think the volume is on the side of Gene Matsumoto. If Miles does shoot in for a sloppy takedown, I think Matsumoto's guillotine is very nice. We've seen him get a couple of finishes with the guillotine inside the UFC. I'm a big fan of Matsumoto. I think that he's very, very skilled, very talented. Still only 25. I think he gets this one done here against Miles Johns. The only way I see this fight going for Johns is if he can basically land some sort of power shot, timing it very well and just landing that one shot. So no way I'm picking him here. Give me Matsumoto. I feel very confident in him this week to get it done against Miles the Dome Johns.
Dude, I wasn't making fun of him, man. If you're fighting at 145 and you got a heavyweight head, that is a huge advantage, and he's got it.
He probably struggles to cut weight just because of it, to be honest. But but next up, we have Andre Fili taking on Christian Rodriguez. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Oh, boy. Talking to you, because this one's another one where, it's a little... Andre Fili can come in and he can beat someone in the top 15 when he's on. You know what I mean? But when he's not on, he can lose to a newcomer on their debut who's not that skilled. And so you don't know which Andre Fili is going to show up. My whole thing is Rodriguez, I feel he's very undersized. We're going to go with that. He's very undersized. But that wrestling and the scrambling is usually in his favor. He always ends up in a pretty decent position. Now, that could be because he's not going against very good technical wrestlers, or he's going up against guys who are thinking strike first most of the time. But I'm going to go with Christian Rodriguez based on the fact that you know what you're getting with him, and it's very consistent, as opposed to Fili, who's, he'll come out and he'll look sharp on the feet striking, and his ground game will look fantastic, his wrestling, his takedowns. And then some days he'll come out and just look like, just, I don't even know what to call it, but he looks like he's not a very skilled fighter, like someone who could be in the top 15, because that's what he can be. He could be somebody in the top 15, or he could be somebody not. And I'm going to take Rodriguez. He's a little bit more consistent. I'm going to break it down like that. I like Andre Fili. I think he's a very entertaining guy. I think that he puts on very entertaining fights, whether the finish is he's the highlight or somebody else is the highlight. I think it's great, but I just don't know which one is going to show up.
Yeah, I've never really been too high on Christian Rodriguez's move up to 145. He obviously struggled to make weight in the previous weight class, and now, up at 145. Struggled against Julian Arosa, struggled against Milky Costa. And now we're in a position now where he's fighting still at 145. And don't get me wrong, I know that Fili is a little bit inconsistent, like Carlos said. Very, very talented guy, could beat some guys who were in the top 15, but also lose to up and comers. So if this fight, Carlos and I really kind of broke down and talked about a little bit before we came on here today, and we both agreed that if the right Fili shows up, it's definitely a fight that he could win. He has all the skills to do it. Team Alpha Male, obviously known for their wrestling. He's definitely a good striker in terms of his ability to kind of land the hook in the pocket. He's obviously got the height and reach advantage in this matchup against the undersized Christian Rodriguez here. And to me, when you look at Christian Rodriguez at 145, it's that he can't muscle guys as he basically could at 135. I think as the fight goes on, he needs to have that top control. He can't be the guy that's kind of going back and forth on the feet. He needs to be able to control you on the ground. But I don't think that he's going to be able to do that here against Fili. Both guys, when they fought Costa, obviously Costa was able to kind of strike at range with Rodriguez and obviously stuff those takedowns. When Fili went against Costa, obviously not to do MMA math, he did get guillotined, but he looked okay in that start of that early round. He looked okay when it was come to the back and forth striking affair in that fight. And I think that Fili, if he keeps this one on the feet, he can definitely land the better shots. I think if he invests in the body, it will slow a little bit of Rodriguez's kind of grappling heavy approach. And I think that he can get this one done. So give me Andre Fili here, stuff the takedowns, kind of get back to a little bit of what he used to do here, fighting on the outside, like he did against Cub Swanson when he was being pressured. And if Rodriguez wants to try to mix in the wrestling, just, try and stay out of the clinch, try and use a little bit of your footwork here. And he is the bigger guy here in Andre Fili. So give me Andre Touchy Fili to get it done as the underdog this week. And I do think Christian Rodriguez has got some skills. I just think he relies heavily on the wrestling. I don't think that's going to be the path to victory here for him. And next up, we have Angela Hill taking on Iasmin. Is it Iasmin or Lasmin? Lucindo here, and I'm going to kick things off with this one, and I got to talk a little bit about Lucindo. Only 23 years old, fighting a 40-year-old veteran here, 17-year age gap, and that tended to be the big factor here in her previous fight. When you look at Lucindo fighting against Amanda Lemos in her last fight, she really tended to struggle, especially early in the first two rounds. She just didn't look like herself. She didn't really get going. I think that she comes back in this one and kind of not necessarily makes a statement, but she gets back in the win column as far as her last performance. It was a very strange one. Some people were saying, it's because Amanda Lemos is the older, more developed fighter. She was able to stuff the takedowns and she couldn't bully, the older woman. Lucindo, obviously a little bit younger, a little bit more frail. I think that she's going to be able to get this takedowns here against Angela Hill. Angela Hill, obviously fantastic Muay Thai, an ability to keep fights, wherever she wants. Basically, she likes to get into the clinch, use those knees, use those elbows, but she's really developed her wrestling in previous fights. We've seen that in a few of her last, previous performances. And I do think that this fight is going to be a very grappling heavy style fight. I think that favors Lucindo here. I think that she likes to come in, get top control, and just use a little bit of ground and pound, ride out rounds with the top control. And to me, Angela Hill, although I don't want to say she's over the hill, no pun intended, but she does have decent striking, but I just don't really see it. Exactly. I just don't really see it with her. It's one of those things where, she's still decent enough to beat some of the women in the division, but to me, this just feels like a get right spot here for Lucindo. I think she gets back in the win column here with the takedowns. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going with over the hill. So I'm going with Angela Hill. And the reason for that is, yeah, she could lose this fight too. But against some younger fighters, she's sometimes in the fight because she's always pressing and she's always pressuring and she's always in their face. And she's always throwing something out there, whether it's a jab, whether it's a kick. She's always throwing something when they're at distance, which is always making them think, oh, she's right on my heels. I got to throw something back. So I'm just going to go back to Neil Magny the other night. The thing with him was if you fight at his pace and you're not ready to fight at his pace, what happened to Dos Santos is, could be the same factor. Hill can force you to fight at times when you don't want to. And if you're new and you're fairly young and you haven't fought people like that, you may, get a little gassed, a little tired. And that's where Hill tends to turn it up. I think I'm going to go with Hill for that reason. I think the volume and the pressure might be just a little too much. I know Lucindo can hit too, like, and Hill's going to be very aware of that, but she could take a shot as well. And although her punches and her kicks and everything aren't pretty, for some reason there's something on it where she ends up rocking someone throughout the fight, whether it's because they're tired, whether it's the volume, the punches, the one you don't see coming is the one that hurts you. She throws too many for you to see one. I'm going to go with Angela Hill, and I think she gets it done because whenever I go against her, that's when she ends up pulling it off. And this is one of those ones where I would go against her. I'm taking Angela Hill.
Be interested to see if Angela Hill can pull off the upset. She's done it here before. So if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we kick things off in the co-main event. Steve Erceg, the Steve Carell lookalike, taking on Ode Osbourne. Carlos, who you got in the co-main event?
I'm going with Steve Erceg. I will say, Erceg, we did talk about this earlier. He does struggle against a lot faster, a lot quicker strikers. And that's what Ode Osbourne is. He's a quick striker. He's very fast. And I don't think he's going to see those strikes coming. Well, some of them. And that's what it is what tags him is the one that he doesn't see coming. But he has lost to guys who are more the upper echelon of the division. Now, it's not to say that Osbourne doesn't have that ability. It's just he's very inconsistent himself. Maybe it's fight IQ. Maybe it's the fact that he lacks on the ground. I think Erceg's going to get into a more of a wrestling state of mind. He's going to try to get him down. He's going to try to work from there. And I think that's going to be his key to success is look for the submission, look for the striking on the ground. I think Erceg's biggest problem is how is he going to get him to the ground. Osbourne is, he's wiry and he does find a way to get out, his takedown defense. He does find a way to get away from body locks, but ultimately he succumbs to them. So I just think if he just keeps repeating takedown after takedown, just be consistent, he's going to get him down, and that'll be his path to success.
Yeah, I like Steve Erceg in this matchup. Obviously, Ode Osbourne, the stepping up here on short notice is not going to serve him well, but obviously saving the co-main event here for the UFC Apex card. I believe it was supposed to be Alex Hernandez, I believe, fighting Steve Erceg here. To me, I'm right there with you on this one, Carlos. I think that this one is kind of if Erceg wants to do this the easy way or the hard way, it just depends on him. But I think he needs to come in here and grapple. We've seen with Ode Osbourne in his previous fights, he's really struggled with getting taken down, controlled, and then ultimately submitted. I think if Erceg comes in and mixes in the grappling, gets the takedown, I'm sure he'll be able to find the submission here. I think that's path A to victory here. If this fight plays out on the feet, especially early, I definitely worry that Erceg might get clipped. He does have a decent chin. He did show off, obviously, his decent chin against Brandon Moreno. He did get tagged a few times in that fight and was still able to kind of hold his ground. But we saw against Cachoeira France, the speedy, more athletic striker, sometimes they can touch his chin and that can be all she wrote. Ode Osbourne does carry a little bit of power. He does obviously have that sort of same speed and athleticism in the striking department. But I do think that Erceg comes in here and grapples. I think he goes for the easy path to victory here, get back in the win column. And hopefully we don't see Steve Erceg kind of spiral out of control here after a few losses. I think this is definitely a suitable matchup here for him to mix in the grappling, find the submission, and get back in the win column. Like I said, I like Steve Erceg. I think he's very, very skilled. I do think his rise to the top was maybe a little bit premature, but I do think this is a step down in competition for him for sure. Even if it is on short notice, I think he gets this one done submission this week. And next up, that brings us to the main event of the evening. We have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez taking on Roman Dolidze in the main event. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going Fluffy. I think he has too much offense, too much pressure. His defense is pretty solid, but most of his defense is based on the fact that offensively he's going to push you to your limit. And we kind of know that Dolidze has a very solid ground game as well. And I just wonder how that plays out. Does he get the better of the scrambles? Does he get the better of the striking? Because Dolidze has been working on his striking, but it's not the most technical striking. It's he kind of swings and sees if it hits you. You know, there's no setup, there's no planning. He just wings it out there, and if it hits you, it hits you. He's got very hard kicks. He's a big guy for the weight class, but Hernandez has gone against guys that can hit, and he steps on the gas and starts to make them melt. And Dolidze has had pretty good cardio, but he hasn't fought anybody that's going to push it like this, where Fluffy's going to get you up against the cage. He's going to try to clinch you, and he'll throw shots into your body, short shots. He'll throw short elbows, and he's looking to take you down. So he wants to get your attention up so he can get you down. Those little shots to the body are going to be stuff that take you out of your rhythm. It's going to take the gas out of you. And how does Dolidze deal with that? And I just don't think that, even if he doesn't get tired, I just think the volume of offense from Fluffy is going to get it done. But Dolidze also does have the ability to hurt him. So Fluffy can't just walk in like he does to most of his opponents. He's going to have to actually be pretty technical as he comes in, and slip a strike as he's coming in, and keep a high guard and check some kicks on the way in. And I think he can do that, and I think he can get this done.
Roman, the Georgian dog, Dolidze, dog of the week. Dissension here in the main event, as we like it to be. And I think Fluffy Hernandez is good, man. I do like Fluffy. I think he surprised a lot of people, even when you go back and look at that Rodolfo Vieira performance, submitting the black belt Hunter. Impressive. He's been very, very good. He's been fantastic. I think the run ends here. I think Dolidze is going to get this one done. To me, Hernandez, he requires to be, or he needs to be able to get those takedowns. If he gets the takedown, he gets you tired from you getting back up. He drags you back down. Mat return, mat return, mat return. You get tired before he does. He's not necessarily a big, bulky guy. Kind of got that, like, I don't want to say skinny fat, but he's pretty slim. There's not a lot of muscular, sort of muscular build on him. So he doesn't necessarily get tired, and he's pretty durable. He's pretty got a good ability to kind of mix in the wrestling and really just gas out his opponents with the wrestling. But when it comes to the stand-up, I think Dolidze is going to have a little bit of an advantage. I think the size here of Dolidze is going to be a factor. He's a little bit thicker through the shoulders, like Carlos said, a very high-level grappler in his own right. I think he can stuff the takedowns here of Hernandez and keep this one on the feet. And when we saw in the Marvin Vettori fight and other ones of his previous fights, that he is a little bit one at a time. He doesn't overextend. He'll just blast a high kick from range. He'll throw a big right hand. He's just looking for those one big shots, and I think sometimes it only takes one big shot here to change the outcome of a fight. And to me, when you look at Hernandez's previous performances in his 2 losses, he has been finished, one to the body as well. And I just think, to me, this comes down to the fact that Dolidze is not going to be that easy to take down and hold down. I think Hernandez is, obviously going to come in and look to wrestle. That's no-brainer. I just think Dolidze is just going to be a high enough level grappler that he's going to be able to keep this one on the feet. I think it's crazy that he's plus 250 as an underdog here. I don't think that Hernandez deserves to be that big of a favorite over a guy like Roman Dolidze. And I think there's value in Dolidze here to keep this one on the feet, win the striking exchanges, and ultimately just be the bigger dog here, which is why he's going to be the dog of the week. I do like both guys. I think both guys are very, very skilled. Dolidze as well on the ground is very good at going for scrambles. Like, he'll roll for a leg lock, which he's obviously shown in the past that he's been able to get. And I do think that that's going to be able to create scrambles for him to get back to his feet here. And I do think he's very competent on the ground. I think a lot of people see him as this big sort of burly Georgian guy that just likes to trade and scream and yell. He's very, very talented when it comes to the grappling game. And I do think that Hernandez here is going to be out of his depth when it comes to the toughness and the striking ability on the feet. So give me Roman, the Georgian dog, Dolidze, to get this one done for the dog of the week. Dissension in the main event, as we always like. And as always, before we wrap things up, you got to hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the content here. And I got to let you know what's coming on the channel. We have the dog of the week, the full highlight reel tape that we have every week. This week, Roman Dolidze. Check that one out. It's going to be a good one. And we have the best bets for this entire card. If you want to get some money in your wallets, we crushed last week. Looking to do it again. We had some good bets in the PFL as well. Check that video out if you're a gambler. And as always, we got to let Carlos know. What do you want to say to the people, Carlos?
Same thing I say all the time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.